get mine. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. Alright, then I'm gone. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. Alright, then I'm gone. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. Alright, then I'm gone. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. You get yours, I get mine. Alright, then I'm gone. Movie screens, then life's the biggest production, and it's a bitch with a big appetite for seduction. All of a sudden, niggas fussing for a big introduction.
Hey y'all, this is Daniel. Welcome to Blunt Talk, baby. How we doing? This is episode 20, and first off, I got a lot to say in the sense of my apologies because I've been away for what seems to be now 2 to 3 months. That's when I just checked the last episode. Episode 19 was posted on YouTube. The summer I got really occupied and didn't have enough time with work and everything going on in my life to get the episodes out, and I didn't want to force bad episodes, nor wanted to force content that I didn't feel happy with. So I needed a little break, and now I'm back and better than ever. The plan is, as it stands, to finish the second season, which we are in right now of Blunt Talk, and then we'll see how we take it from there. This is episode 20, and we have what looks like to be 6 more episodes counting this one. So without further ado, welcome back, baby. All right, so the one thing is we had a crazy NBA playoffs. I didn't think, it's crazy to say it, but in my playoff predictions earlier, I had said that the Milwaukee Bucks would make it all the way to the finals, but I still had them losing. I didn't think they actually would end up being the eventual champions. So, in the spirit of basketball, kind of being soon on the comeback, on the horizon of coming back and the season starting, the offseason's all done. The draft happened. Training camp's about to happen like near the end of September-ish. What better thing to do an early NBA preview? So it's going to be more like an offseason review / overall NBA preview in a sense. I'm going to give you this episode 20 is going to be the Western Conference predictions. I'm going to give you all my predictions on each team on the West. We're going to emphasize some more teams more than others, but you know the gist. So let's get it on cracking with it. First off, before we start the episode, I wanted to bring back the segment that I had going on for the second season, and it's the card of the episode. And I thought, what better than to do with the Western Conference with a throwback player like Mr. Brandon Roy. Look at this. He was one of my favorite players watching the NBA early stages of my life, because honestly, this guy was a monster when he was playing for the Portland Trail Blazers. He was one of the few people that kept them relevant in the late 2000s, and if it wasn't for him, I don't know if they would be in the position they're in. Like, Damian Lillard did a lot for them, obviously, but after he was done in Portland because of the injuries and everything, Damian Lillard came in as a draft pick. So he played a part in that. He was part of the LaMarcus Aldridge, Greg Oden, Nicholas Batum, and Wesley Matthews, and who else was it? Andre Miller era? Yeah, pretty much. So let's get it cracking. The 15th, I'm going to basically, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to rank all the teams from 15th, the bottom of the conference, to the first. And I was thinking I would do it in 3 categories. The first category is going to be like the tanking category. Not essentially teams that are tanking. It's just the teams that they're kind of tanking because they're not doing the best. For those who don't know what tanking means, is normally a term used in sports for when a team isn't trying to be very successful and just getting a good draft pick, because that's how American sports work. Okay, anywho, number 15 team is going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. I am really sorry to all my Thunder fans out there, or to the very few that they exist. The direction with this team is clearly just trying to develop the players that they have and get as many young players as they have. They have a great foundation, or a great building block per se, in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They just gave him the extension, 5 years for $172 million. Sheesh, man. That's a lot of money for a youngster. Anywho, they picked up Derek Favors, and they drafted Josh Giddey, Trey Mann, and Jeremiah Robinson Earl. But honestly, man, I just don't think that these guys are really going to be putting that much effort or emphasis into the season. I think they're just trying to get a great draft pick. They have a lot of draft picks from the trades that they've done. And every move that they've done signifies that they're not trying to win. So I think they're going to be the team trying the most to lose, which means that they're going to be my clear number 15 ranked team, at least in my opinion. The only thing I can say other for the Oklahoma City Thunder would honestly have to be the fact that I do like a lot of the young players they have. Josh Giddey, he just got an injury. However, I think if he does come back for the season, he'll be a player that can honestly be fit nicely next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's a big guard. Alexander Pokuševski, the big man, European guy, he is really good in my opinion. The man can shoot. He's too skinny though. He needs to add some weight, but we will see that eventually with time because it happens to all these players that come from either overseas or just in college. It'll take you some time to get into the league and gain some weight. I like him, and I like Lou Dort. He showed us in the playoffs when it was against, if I'm not mistaken, the Houston Rockets in the bubble. If you guys remember that series, he was playing great defense, locking up James Harden, and on Game 7, he had like 20-plus points. And if I'm not mistaken, he almost won them the game. He almost won them the game, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to move on to the 14th team in the West, which I have ranked as the Houston Rockets, if I'm not mistaken. Another team in the Western Conference that's going to be in the tanking category just because of the fact that when you look at it, the West is stacked. It always has been stacked. And you sadly have to acknowledge the fact that Houston is a mess right now. The James Harden trade still like lingers around them. They're still suffering with the consequences. Like, for example, the John Wall trade that happened for Russell Westbrook and the James Harden trade. However, out of all the teams this year, I think they won the draft. They have Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Josh Christopher, and Usman Garuba. Man, at least two of those kids are going to become all right, let me word this better. Jalen Green at least has the potential to become a bona fide star in the league. He's got the scoring ability and the raw talent, in my opinion, and he's only going to go up from there. The other guys, at least one of those three other guys, will become either a starter or a player that's going to play for 10, 15 years, in my opinion. They did a great draft, in my opinion. I really like Alperen Sengun. I saw him in the summer league a little bit, and the guy lacks a little bit of the size, but he makes it with athleticism, and he's got a good touch. As for other moves they did, they signed Daniel Tice to a nice contract, the German guy. I mean, I don't hate Daniel Tice. I don't know. I don't see how much it's going to do to you. If your plan is to start him next to Christian Wood, I like that. If your plan is to have him be your backup big, that's good too, because they got youngsters. They have a lot of young players. My storyline for this Houston Rockets team is, can you trade the Eric Gordon contract and can you trade the John Wall contract? Eric Gordon's making more money than he really should. I'm just being frank, man. Eric Gordon has been injured a little bit in the recent years, and I understand he can shoot, but I still don't think this man is like a good fit. Like, I feel like he deserves to be like either a 6-man or a starting shooting guard or just a backup shooting guard for a contender. Because he's a very good role player at shooting. Problem is that contract's going to be hard to trade. And the John Wall contract is one of the worst contracts in the league. I'm a big John Wall fan. I love John Wall. Problem is with his injury history and the fact that he's a isolation and ball usage heavy player, finding the salary to match it for an equal trade-off for any other team is going to be hard, and just implementing that to your style is going to be hard. Like a team like the Clippers, I feel like having a player that can get you at least 10 assists on the Clippers would be good to put up next to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, but you would have to trade like 5 players in order to get John Wall. So it's kind of the same scenario for every team that could really use a playmaking point guard. Problem is, are you willing to deal with the fact that he's going to shoot a lot? And that's my problem with him being in Houston. You have all these young players, and you drafted Jalen Green. And you got Kevin Porter Jr., who dropped 50 points last year in one of the games. But with John Wall being there, it's not against John Wall. It's just he is going to try to commend the ball a little bit, and he's near the end of his contract. I think it's either a 2-year or 1 year with a player option. This man's going to want to ball out to prove that he still deserves some type of money. So that's my storyline with them. If we're keeping it real, they lost Kelly Olynyk and they lost Sterling Brown. I just don't see him being honestly that good for the season, especially since they just got the second pick in Jalen Green. I think they're just going to tank and just going to try to get as much assets and much draft picks to build around Jalen Green and Christian Wood. Christian Wood is good. He had that injury last year, and I was kind of sad because of it, because Christian Wood was looking like the most improved player in the year. But to keep it real with you, if Christian Wood doesn't stay healthy, don't be surprised if Houston ends up trying to trade him this year. My number 13 team in the West in the tanking category is going to be sadly the San Antonio Spurs. They lost DeMar DeRozan, Patty Mills. Who else did they lose I can think of from the top of my head? Gorgie Dieng, Trey Lyles, Rudy Gay too. They lost Rudy Gay. They added a lot of people. I just don't know if they're going to be a good fit. Thaddeus Young, Zach Collins. They brought back Bryn Forbes, Al-Farouq Aminu, Doug McDermott. Some pieces from the DeMar DeRozan trade, sign and trade, my bad. They didn't extend no contracts or nothing like that. They drafted Joshua Primo, who everyone's mock drafts had this guy being like late first round, but they had like a lottery pick. So everyone was like, whoa, what happened with this? I really hope the guy turns out well. San Antonio is known for drafting good players, or at least players that are very decent in the league. So I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to succeed with him in some shape or form, or he'll be good for whatever team he gets traded to if that's the case or something. But I just feel bad for Greg Popovich. That's generally all I'm going to say for the San Antonio Spurs. I like the Dejounte Murray and Keldon Johnson and Lucas Samanic. I like those three players. Lucas Samanic is barely going to play for them, I feel like. But yeah, I don't really know what they're going to do direction-wise, and especially in the very competitive and tough West. You got to look at it from a perspective of like, sure, they'll be competitive because they're not trying to lose, but eventually these guys are just not going to – these guys are really just not going to be up to pair with the other teams in the West, at least in my opinion. And to any San Antonio Spurs fans, I'm really sorry for this, but all right. The 12th team in the West, in my opinion, is going to be the Sacramento Kings, baby. So I know they've usually been like on the cusp, on the play-in game area of the standings, but I don't know, man. They got Tristan Thompson, Alex Glenn, and they drafted Davion Mitchell. This is my problem. You have already Darren Fox. You got, what's his name? Tyrese Halliburton, and you got Buddy Hield. They all are guards. You drafted with a lottery pick, a very highly touted, high potential, and honestly, right now, right away, pretty decent point guard. How are you going to manage to play all these guys at the same time? Buddy Hield already wants to leave. He said it last year. You haven't traded him. Marvin Bagley wants to leave. His dad wants him to leave. And when parents get involved for that, that's another problem. They re-signed Richaun Holmes, which is the one of the few deals I generally did love, because Richaun Holmes proved last year, hey, yo, one, I deserve money, and two, I'm a baller. He's got that mid-range floater hook shot thing, not hook shot, mid-range floater, like mid-range jump shot. Oh, if you ever see a Sacramento Kings game, I'm telling you, just pay attention to when the first time that Richaun Holmes tries to go for a jump shot, and you're going to be like, oh, wow, this guy's nice. Darren Fox had one hell of a season. He really showed that he's upped it up. If he ups it up to one more level, maybe, just maybe, either an all-star appearance or he'll be most improved player. Because I feel like even though the Kings weren't that good last year, he didn't covet the most improved player award, sadly. But my problem is I feel like the Kings just need to do a move. Whether it's Darren Fox or Buddy Hield, you got to commit to not commit. You just got new change of scenery. Harrison Barnes been there for a while too. You got Marvin Bagley there. Now that you got Tristan Thompson and Alex Len signings, you still got Richaun Holmes and Marvin Bagley. That's a lot of big men that you're paying. So someone's got to give. That's it. I feel like out of other teams in the pack of the West, they're sadly going to be in the tanking category because they're not going to be as good. They're not going to be able to compete with the top tier dogs in the West. So let's go on to the next team, which is going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves, at least in my opinion. When first off the top of my head that I can think of, they did the Ricky Rubio trade. They sent him to Cleveland for Taurean Prince, which I actually do like because when you look at the build of this roster, the roster depth for these guys, not only did they add Taurean Prince, but they added Patrick Beverley, two defensive-minded players. If you ever saw or spent a single time of your last year or last season watching the Timberwolves, they have a lot of entertaining, flashy, offensively gifted players, but none of these guys looked like they could play defense to save their life or as if their life depended on it. And the problem with that is having two star players like D'Angelo Russell and Karl-Anthony Towns being your two best players, having them to be on the floor the whole time. It's a big issue from the perspective of being able to maintain more than just three guys that can play defense. So with some of these moves, I like what they did because already its starting lineup is what? D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, and Malik Beasley as a 2 and 3. Then you get Karl Anthony Towns, and then you can start Taurean Prince or Jared Vanderbilt or Jaden McDaniels. I think it's Jaden McDaniels, the one that plays for them. I really hope I'm not wrong on this. Because they traded Juancho Hernan-Gomez too. Another 4 for them. So I don't know, man. I kind of feel like D'Lo and Cat will be healthy this year and they'll at least be able to have a good season. But when you still look at it, when you really still look at it, I don't know if these guys are going to have enough to compete with the other cats in the West. It's kind of a similar position with the Sacramento Kings because I like some of the players they have as well. But when it all comes down to it, I just think they're going to be affected unless there's like a change of scenery, unless they actually go for like a Ben Simmons trade because Patrick Beverly's out here tweeting, I want Ben Simmons on the team. We'd be a championship contender. You have to give up something for that. You can't just do picks and then like all the bench warmers for that because then you have no bench. What the heck's up with that? So unless I see something different from Minnesota, I don't know how good they'll be. Just want to do a shout out to Jalen Noel and to Naz Reid. Those two guys are underrated and don't get enough play time in there because they're at the bottom of the bench. But those guys are really gifted and nice. So if they see a change of scenery into a team that actually needs a player in that specific position, you never know if they might become the next big star or at least the next big starter for that team. We're going to move on to the 10th team in the West in my predictions. This is going to be the start of like the second category, not the tanking category. And this category is going to be like the competitive teams. That's what I'm going for right now. Patent pending, name pending, whatever you want to call it. The Memphis Grizzlies. So hear me out. Just hear me out 1 second. They traded Grayson Allen and they traded, what's his name? Jonas Valanciunas. And not only those two people, but they picked up, they traded away Eric Bledsoe, which was honestly one of the best things they did. They got Steven Adams, Jared Culver, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, and they drafted Sire Williams, who looked decent-ish in college, didn't look that crazy. So I hope that the Memphis development staff, because they're really good at developing all these guys. No one on this Memphis team is a bum. I'm telling you, anyone in this Memphis team can generally give you the work any day of the week when their numbers call. However, I feel like the players they lost are much better than the players they got back. When you look on the production basis, comparison player to player, Jonas Valanciunas versus Steven Adams matchup, Jonas Valanciunas gets you more points. Steven Adams gets you more rebounds. They're both not elite defenders, but at least with someone like Jonas Valanciunas, you got that guy that could pop mid-range or even spot up threes a couple times. Steven Adams is more of the pick and roll. Dish it out to me. I'll dunk it. I'll lay it up. Don't post me up. Don't have me on the post, please. Don't not try to get me to make a post move. I'm good with putbacks and I can get rebounds. But besides that, that's going to be more clogging in the paint for a John Morant-led team. Not only that, the Grayson Allen loss is really big because this guy was having a lot of games like during the regular season where he was scoring like over 20 points. And I was like, damn, Grayson Allen definitely stepped it up a notch. So it's not like I'm saying they're going to be horrible because they're going to be in the play-in tournament as a 10th seed. And I like their starting lineup projected at least. You got like a combination of John Morant, Dylan Brooks, or Desmond Bane, or what's his name? DeAnthony Melton at the 2, and Kyle Anderson or Dylan Brooks, whoever's left over for that. Jaren Jackson Jr. and then Steven Adams. I would really be intrigued to see if they mess around with Jaren Jackson at the 5. But since they did the Steven Adams trade and he's getting a lot of money, I don't know if they'll actually do that. Because in my belief, if you're paying a man the money, you got to play him, or else why the heck do you have him sitting on the bench for nothing? So, yeah, I believe Memphis is going to like take a little bit of a step down because of that. But we're going to have to see, because from the 10th seed all the way up to the 8th seed, or actually I regress. From the 10th seed all the way to the 7th seed, all the play-in tournament spots, I really just see there being a little bit of a shifting situation in the sense that it could go either way if we're really looking at it, depending on injuries and health and just like the overall new coaching staffs. Because my number 9th team is going to be the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, I have them higher than the Grizzlies, even though last year it was the Grizzlies that were the 8th seed and the Pelicans that were like 11th or 12th. For one reason, they got a new coach, Willie Green. And even though he hasn't coached before as a head coach, he's been in different assistant coaching staffs for different other organizations. I think this man, Willie Green, might be doing a better job than Stan Van Gundy and the prior coach that Zion had before. They still have Zion Williamson. Not only that, they picked up a great player, a great center at most, that I think he is Jonas Valanciunas. Gives him a spacing option so that way you don't have Steven Adams in the paint clogging it up for Zion. It's going to be mostly Zion in the paint most of it. They picked up Devontae Graham, and I believe, I don't know if it was the sign and trade for Lonzo, but they somehow got him. And if you remember well, Devontae Graham had a great rookie year for Charlotte. He didn't have that great of a year last year because LaMelo Ball got into the reins. They also had Terry Rozier and Malik Monk still on the team, so there was less action for him. But Devontae Graham being a starting point guard for this team, I like it a lot because even though he's not going to be able to stop anyone on defense, he can shoot and he can spread the floor for Mr. Zion Williamson. They picked up Garrett Temple and Thomas Satoransky. I like Garrett Temple as a spot-up corner point shooter. He can be a decent defender. And Thomas Satoransky, I think, is really underrated. He just had a great Olympics for the Czech Republic out here, balling out against every country. And not only that, he's a 6'7" point guard. So he's a big guard. Whether you have him as a point guard or shooting guard, no matter what type of rotation you try to do, he's going to be a great contributor. Not going to do too much, not going to do too little. And for defensive purposes against smaller guards, I think he'll be doing great. They re-signed Josh Hart, who was a decent pickup because Josh Hart is a great defender, in my opinion. And you needed someone for the bench. I don't know if he'll start because you got Brandon Ingram, unless you want to put Josh Hart as a shooting guard. But that's all up to Willie Green. But I just think that this is going to be a better New Orleans team by a little, even if it's a tougher West. So I see him making their first ever play-in tournament and possibly first ever playoff spot. But remember, I said that these spots are really interchangeable to a degree because I don't know how their seasons and new coaches and new teams are going to be looking at, because my number 8 team is going to be the Portland Trailblazers. Yes, I know Dame Lillard is going to be an 8th seed in this year, in my opinion, for the one and only reason that they have Chauncey Billups as a new head coach. And I love Chauncey Billups. Not trying to bring him down at all. I'm just saying that when you look at it, we don't know if he's going to be the greatest fit for Damian Lillard. In interviews, they said that he doesn't want to jack up everything all these threes. He wants to play a more balanced game of basketball. Damian Lillard's style of play isn't exactly the most balanced style of basketball. It's really just dribble, isolation, crossover, or like coming off screens and shooting threes, whatever regard it is. So I don't know if that'll be a great fit. And the whole Dame Lillard situation leaves me a little uneasy. For all we know, they could pull the trigger and trade him, or he could just wake up the next day and say, I want to be traded. So I don't want to put them that high up because I don't know what they're going to look like the next day. It's kind of like the James Harden Houston situation from last year, the start of the season. We didn't know really much about it. Even though Dame said that he doesn't want to leave, that doesn't mean it's a business at the end of the day. You could trade him if you wanted to. I like their additions. Larry Nance Jr., solid pickup as a backup big who can do a 3, a 4, or a 5 defensively for switching ability. Like in the playoffs, Yusuf Nurkic ain't doing it for you. Put Larry Nance as a center. Come on, man. You're telling me he ain't going to be able to hold his own, and he's been playing in Cleveland for so long that I feel like people don't realize how decent he is. He's really good. He's trying to homage his dad in his playing style. Cody Seller, man, for a backup center, man, I don't even remember how much they paid him, but for a backup center, that's better than anything. It's not the end of the world. It's not Hassan Whiteside's blocking ability. Notice how I didn't say defensive ability. It's not Hassan Whiteside's blocking ability, but Cody Seller is good for pick and roll. And when he's healthy, because he's very injured a lot, when he's healthy, he can do the serviceable job. They picked up Tony Snell and Beck McLemore. I like those pickups. And they re-signed Norman Powell. Because I remember everyone was like, wait a minute. They traded Gary Trent Jr., the younger, more potentially filled player, for the older but right away small as position player. So I don't know, because if you're telling me that I'm the GM of the Trailblazers today, I'm trading either CJ McCollum or Norman Powell somehow. If the idea is to keep Damian Lillard, because that lineup is just going to be too small unless you bring Norman Powell as a 6-man and putting what's his name, either Robert Covington and Tony Snell, or Robert Covington and Larry Nance, or like you got to do something different, because like you need like to actually have people that can guard the small forwards in the West, like the LeBrons and the Kawhis when he comes back, or the Paul George if he goes into that role, and the other forwards in that league, like Jimmy Butler. Any other KD, Giannis, because he can at situational with the switching defense. I don't know if Norman Powell can do that because he's a great defender at times for most players, but he can't keep it up. So I really feel like this Portland Trailblazers team is going to see a lot of turmoil with the season if it doesn't start off well. So be on the lookout. That's why I don't have him that high up. I don't want to put him up in that high of a pedestal. Now, I don't want to trigger these fans for putting me in this team this low. I'm really sorry, man. I think the Los Angeles Clippers are really going to struggle. I know they had a great season, a great playoffs after the Kawhi injury. They made it all the way to the conference finals against Phoenix and lost in 5 or 6 games. I think it was 6, but don't quote me on that. My thing with that, however, is this. Kawhi Leonard is going to miss a lot of the season. And then Paul George, I have every single faith. I have a lot of faith that Paul George is going to do a great job in being like the star player this year. Heck, all NBA first team or second team or third team if he plays at a high level. My one concern with the Clippers is I don't like the way that they treated the offseason because they lost both Patrick Beverley and Rondo. And I get that their tenures there were kind of overdue. But, like, I don't know if you're telling me that Eric Bledsoe and Justice Winslow being the only signings and then bringing back Reggie Jackson and Nicholas Batum and Serge Ibaka was the solution to your problems. Because if you're going to be out with Kawhi for this long, your starting lineups is looking like what? Reggie Jackson, Eric Bledsoe, Paul George, Nicholas Batum, and either Serge Ibaka Zubac, or I can't even think of another center they have. So they're going to struggle a little bit in the Western Conference, especially with some of the moves or the returns from some of the people in the Western Conference. But I think they'll this is my thing. From all the teams that are competitive, there's the one team that I think that has a great shot at becoming a contender by the end of the season, all depending on how long it takes Kawhi to come back. And how Kawhi comes back. Because if Kawhi comes back in MVP form, I don't think there's anyone stopping him. And especially depending on the favorable matchup. Because based on this, I don't want to mention the team that I haven't faced against, but you're going to see it's going to be an interesting matchup if it actually goes into full fruition. So I'll leave it at that. My number 6 team in the West, if I'm not mistaken, I have the Golden State Warriors. This is going to be the first team on my list of the contenders in the West. Now, I know I have a lot of contenders in the West, but when I say contenders, I don't really mean like they're going to win the title. I just mean like the teams that are going to be contending for the home court advantage, or in other words, are going to be the better teams in this conference. They're in a different level compared to the rest of the teams due to the situation. So first team I'll put it is the 6th spot is the Golden State Warriors. I feel at times I'm one of the few people that say this, but I really like their offseason. Not only did they bring back a veteran player that won titles with them, Andre Iguodala, they had a decent draft in Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, 2 players I think that with time they'll be great additions to the Golden State Empire. They brought in Otto Porter Jr. for a minimum, and they brought in Nemanja Bjelica for a minimum. So when you look at that, that's 2 players that are speciality or like their forte is shooting. So you get more shooters for the Golden State system. James Wiseman should be coming back from that injury healthier. Hopefully now they'll understand that, hey, we can't force him to be that win now center. But he might still be useful for us, whether it's as an asset for a big win now trade or as a different type of center. Because if you saw the little bit of highlights from Jason Wiseman, this guy was a pick and roll monster and post up guy. But that's not how the Golden State Warriors really operate. They do screens, but they don't do like pick and roll. They mostly use the screens for Curry. The reason I have the Golden State Warriors at 6 is because Klay Thompson is going to come back. And this is the thing. We don't know if he's going to come back and be Klay Thompson. He's been out for 2 years, man. I don't know if it's only me that's concerned about this, because for all we know, he might not be the same player. But since his best ability is spot up shooting, it's not even creating shots, and it was it's been leg injuries. I feel like he'll be still talented enough where he'll help this team become a good playoff team, not play-in tournament team, a playoff team. He's coming back around Christmas, so we're going to have to wait to see. That's why I don't have him like as a 2-3 seed, as I've been seeing everyone on Twitter going crazy with. Because, hello, that's like 10 to 20-ish games that he's not going to play. That's going to play some type of a factor. Steph Curry cannot carry it on a game-to-game basis every single night. He's going to get tired eventually. So that's my honest opinion. And this is the thing. I realized that earlier, if you paid attention, I said that the Clippers are one of the teams from the second category that I think can flip into the first category because of the Kawhi situation. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if the Clippers finish 6 and then the Warriors finish 7 for whatever reason. Because the injury situation with Klay, and you don't know how the team will get it going when the season starts or the season is moving along. And it kind of ties in with the team I have in the 5th seed, which is the Denver Nuggets. Oh, wow. You forgot about the Denver Nuggets, people? I say that because it's like I've seen the Denver Nuggets on different perspectives. I've seen them being ranked really high still, and I've seen them being ranked really low because of that Jamal Murray injury. They still have Nikola Jokic, but I'm really I don't know, because Jamal Murray is still going to be out for a decent amount of the year. They didn't have the greatest offseason from a perspective of like bringing in like every single like great free agent that they had. They brought back Will Barton, JaMychal Green, and Austin Rivers. 3 guys that were in that team that they were doing really great things, whether it's on defense or just on scoring a bunches of points when they needed to. They brought in Jeff Green. I really like him. Nashon Highland. Don't know much about him, to be honest. However, during the draft, they were hyping him up and like they were showing you the highlights, and this man looked like a scoring guy. And when I say scoring guy, I just mean like this guy looked like he knows how to score in bunches, like it's like Lou Williams' job. You know what I mean? They lost JaMychal McGee, and that's really it. They got Bull. I generally think they should back up Jokic with Bull. Try it for a minute. If it doesn't work, it's not going to kill you. You still have Nikola Jokic as your MVP center. It's not a big deal. Jokic is going to struggle a little bit because we saw it in the playoffs when he's the only one that's consistently going to do it. Michael Porter Jr. is not at that level yet. Like Jamal Murray has cemented himself to be in a level that you can depend on him for the playoffs. I do, however, think Michael Porter Jr. has a great case of being the most improved player of the year this season, depending on how long Jamal Murray takes for the injury and yada, yada, yada. So, yeah. And again, the 7th seed, the Clippers, the 6th seed, the Warriors, and the 5th seed, the Denver Nuggets, I feel like they're all interchangeable in some sorts, depending on when their players come back and how the team gets rolling on with it. And honestly, because it's Nikola Jokic, the MVP with the Denver Nuggets, I can see them even jumping a position higher up because I'm looking at my predictions and I'm not the most confident guy when I say that the Dallas Mavericks are going to be my 4th seed this year because I really don't like the offseason they had. They had so much cap space and they dropped the ball. They needed to get Luka that consistent second option because Kristaps Porzingis, I'm not trying to hate on him because I'm a Knicks fan. I'm generally just being honest with you. The guy doesn't look like he's taking it seriously at times, and he doesn't look like he's committed to it as much as you want him to be at times. So that's a problem if you're the organization that traded all those picks and that traded all those assets for him. They picked up the homie Reggie Bullock from the Knicks, who is a great defender. He's an underrated defender, honestly. He was showing me this season as a Knicks player, he can lock up some of the players in the league when he needs to. Not every single consistent moment, but he was doing a job, and he can shoot. They picked up a young center in Moses Brown, who I really like. They added Jason Kidd as a head coach. Jason Kidd doesn't have the greatest record as a coach, but Jason Kidd, he's honestly considered one of the greatest point guards in the NBA history. If you think he's not, then I'm really sorry, but he is. Stats, highlights, proven track record, titles. I don't know what else you need. Multiple finals. I don't know if that's going to be perfect match with Jason Kidd because I still think Rick Carlisle was a great coach. I just don't know if he had too much time with the Dallas Mavericks, and after seeing the Nowitzki situation, like I thought it was time. You got to switch it up at least once. So I'm interested to see how this works. For all I know, Jason Kidd could be the coach of the year if the Dallas Mavericks have a great season and Luka Doncic actually shows up to training camp looking healthy. But at the same time, I saw a tweet, and I'm sorry to do this to the Boston Celtics fans because it was around Jason Tatum and Luka Doncic. It was a picture of Jason Tatum training, and then there was a picture of Luka Doncic just chilling. It looked like he was back home in Slovenia or in Spain, just in a party or something, just chilling. And the tweet said, some people actually do the trading in the summer. However, some people take it as a joke. And then someone quote tweeted it saying, just because you're not posting or showing off your training doesn't mean that you're not actually training. The videos and pictures don't only mean that you're putting it up online. That doesn't mean that Luka Doncic might take it serious. I know that last offseason, he didn't take it seriously, and people were saying, he showed up not in shape for training camp. However, after getting in the extension, participating in the Olympics, sure, this man deserved a little bit of a break, but I feel like Luka Doncic is finally at the point where he's like, all right, it's time to get to business and actually try this time. But that's why but besides that, I think Luka Doncic is going to have an All-NBA first team, maybe all-star captain or all-star starter season like he would normally have. Heck, he could be the MVP this year if everything goes into full fruition for him. However, I'm a little doubtful with the Dallas Mavericks because they're from top to bottom and their bench too. It's not like they're as great as the other teams from the West. And in the moment that the Kawhi and Klay and Jamal Murray come back for Denver, Clippers, and Golden State, for all we know, Dallas Mavericks might be dropping down if they don't keep it up. But if we're only basing it off the start, at least, I feel like Dallas is the fourth best team with them having the full team. I also need to see them make a move for a second option that's more reliable than Kristaps Porzingis, because Luka Doncic can't always do it. That's really it. My third seed in the West is going to be the Phoenix Suns, baby. How are you feeling about that? First off, can we just say that the Phoenix Suns had a great offseason? And not only that, they made it to the NBA Finals after that Chris Paul acquisition and no one believing in the Phoenix Suns knowing Chris Paul, man. I hate that there's so many people bringing Chris Paul down because, you finally made it to finals. You still choked, quote unquote. Hello? Can we just acknowledge the fact that he made it to the finals and he brought a team that had never made it in the playoffs in all the 7 or 6 or 8 years that Devin Booker's been on the team? Not only that, they went to the finals in that first playoff run. Devin Booker became the player with the most points in his first ever playoff appearance in the sense of the whole playoffs. He passed Rick Barry. I forgot who was the third guy on the list. And not only that, DeAndre Ayton was breaking some of Tim Duncan's and Dwight Howard's and Patrick Ewing's and Shaq's field goal percentage records for bigs in the playoffs. So when you think about all of this in consideration, they had an overachieving season by a long shot. They picked up Landry Shamet, JaVale McGee, Alfred Payton from my Knicks, thank God, because I did not want to see him back on the Knicks. And they re-signed Chris Paul, Frank Kaminsky, and I think Cameron Payne too. The only big loss, I guess you could say, are Jabon Carter to the Nets and Torrey Craig. And I saw that there are rumors to pick up Thaddeus Young from the what's it called? From the San Antonio Spurs in a trade, because Thaddeus Young right now is looking like a player to a win now situation and not to be in a rebuilding situation. However, with the other two teams I have left in the West, I just don't know, because I switched my predictions for the top 3 just like before I started recording. So yeah. Besides that, my only worry is this: the moment Chris Paul gets injured again, or like if the other teams get back healthy and the Suns go in a slump, for all we know, they might be like a 5 seed. But as of right now, viewing the rosters, however they are currently constructed, I believe that the Phoenix Suns will be the 3rd seed in the West. And then you guys are going to hate me. I got the Los Angeles Lakers at the number 2 seed in the West, okay? Don't panic. There's a reason for this. For those who do not know, Anthony Davis has played less games in the last 3 years than Joel Embiid has. Now, did you know that? Because I didn't. And if I would have never found that out, I would have always assumed Anthony Davis is healthier than Joel Embiid. So not only is Anthony Davis a little unhealthy on the recency, LeBron James has had the biggest injury of his career in the sense that he's been such a healthy player. He's been like a tank in that regard, that he's just been able to consistently play, playoff after playoff after playoff. That worries me a little bit. They're going to be doing a lot of resting, so I don't think the Lakers are going to take the regular season that serious. And they picked up Westbrook, another player that recently in the last 5 years has had a couple injuries, not to his fault. I mean, injuries are injuries, but when you look at it, this team is pretty good. They added Russell Westbrook, Kendrick Nunn, Carmelo Anthony, Wayne Ellington, Malik Monk, Dwight Howard, Trevor Ariza, Kent Bazemore, and reportedly they are going to add Rajon Rondo back. And they re-signed Taylor Horton Tucker. That was like the only guy they really re-signed. This is my thing, man. The moment Westbrook or LeBron or AD go down, you're going to have to fill up the starter spots. And eventually more people are going to have to play from the bench and whatnot. I just don't know when you look at it from top to bottom, roster construction-wise, with the other teams in the West, if the Lakers will be able to sustain like a whole month of not dealing with Anthony Davis to replace him. Like Carmelo Anthony will be a great replacement offensively, but like defensively, are you going to tell me that he's going to do everything that Anthony Davis does, like a defensive player of the year candidate every year? I don't know. That's my biggest worry with the Lakers. Come playoff time, if they're healthy, there's no stopping them. How are you going to stop a team that has a point guard as Russell Westbrook, hard-headed, triple-double oriented, who isn't the greatest defender, but I'm not going to tell you that he doesn't put effort or hustle for every play. This man is an engine. Never stop, never settle. He's not the same MVP prime Russell Westbrook. It's still Russell Westbrook. Next to LeBron James, who's considered the GOAT of our generation. Heck, half the people on the planet consider him the GOAT. I consider Michael Jordan, but that's a discussion for another day. Or I can put in the plug for my fifth ever episode of my podcast, the Michael Jordan and LeBron debate. And Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis is considered like the greatest power forward of our generation after Tim Duncan. Name one power forward better than Anthony Davis that we've seen after Tim Duncan. I'll wait. Heck, you could say he's one of the greatest big men of this decade, because you got the Giannis's, you got the Embiids and Jokic, but that's later decade, and I think they're honestly going to be considered for the 2020s, man, because their guys are still in their 20s. AD's 28-ish, so he's about to end. Yeah, a healthy Lakers team, I don't see no one stopping them, but they're going to be resting a lot. Even if they're healthy, they're going to be resting games in the season, so they're not going to take it as hardcore as my number one team in the West. And not only the number one team in the West, I think this team actually had a great offseason. They locked and loaded on the depth perspective, because sheesh, man, I cannot tell you how much the Utah Jazz are looking like a scary team for the regular season at least. Now, after seeing what happened in the playoffs, I'm kind of worried for like how it's going to continue to be. It's not even the Rudy Gobert situation, man. It's more like at times it felt like it was just Donovan Mitchell just scoring. Joe Ingles, Bojan, I hope it's Bojan Bogdanovic, Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, all bona fide scorers. But when you look at it, the nail of the coffin is at times some of those guys either weren't at their highest in the playoffs, or they all do the similar thing. It's all jump shooters, and it's the same thing that happened with those James Harden teams in Houston. You can't just depend on shooting forever, because there's going to have times that you can't make shots. However, I really like their offseason. Hassan Whiteside is a backup center for Rudy Gobert. Hello. All that Hassan Whiteside's really good for in this day and age of the NBA, setting screens and blocks, having a 3-time defensive player of the year that's really great at setting screens and blocks as your starter, having the same type of player prototype or stereotype as your backup. Hello, that's perfect. Rudy Gay, great addition, proven winner in proven organizations, and when it matters most. I wouldn't say you can depend for him to be a star of the team. He's past his prime, but as a veteran with the experience he's got and the abilities he knows the ability he has to play basketball, shoot, space the floor, play defense, just pick and roll, whatnot, especially now that he's like a stretch 4. That's a great addition. Eric Pascal, bro. I'm a big man. Damn it. I'm a big fan of Eric Pascal. Villanova product. He played with the Warriors. He was, when Draymond Green was out and out from those teams, he was like the Draymond Green substitute. 6'5", power forward, very muscular, very bulky, that can play defense, stretch the floor, pick and roll. Come on, man. However, my only concern with this team is, 1, come playoff time, how are they going to score besides Donovan Mitchell? And 2, feels like they have too many wing players in a sense, because you really look at the depth chart, it's Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell and Jordan Clarkson. They still have Miglione, but he's not like he rarely plays in the team's rotation, so that's not going to be significant. Then you get what's his name? Royce O'Neal, Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles, Rudy Gay, Eric Pascal, and George Niang. No, my bad. George Niang left. Those are all guys that play all the same positions. So having to find time to play in all at the same time gonna be difficult. And that'll be it, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's my Western Conference predictions. I hope you guys enjoy. It's great to be back. And peace, baby.